And I think I feel definitely this season the matches have been closer. Whether that's down to the fact that it's 8 teams instead of 12, whether that's down to the fact that everyone can prepare for games, whether it's a combination of all of those things, it's been fun.
Yeah, definitely. For Legacy Esports, just going to be rolling out straight on Goads. Ground Zero, the same can be said for them. Looking, I think, to Ike and Fundray, in my mind, for Legacy to really step up here against Ground Zero. They were the ones that had the clutch plays last week, Ben, and I'm looking for the same here.
Fundray, very, very low. Thankfully, does get boot back just a little bit. Everyone healed up again for now, and you're 100% right, Jordan. These are definitely the players that we were watching last week and really seem to have a bit of an impact. Legacy, I think, it really was about the team fights, the team competition, how they played together. Ground Zero going to pick up the point to start things off. Legacy, again, all a little bit unhealthy. Noosh almost getting demec'd as well. So this fight here, they need to decide how are they going to play this out. Do they fall back, regroup, or do they keep wasting time?
Well, I think they need to wait for Stolen Picnic to get that sound barrier up because Locust does have a grab here, which they should be well aware of. Ground Zero been doing a lot of damage, and the grab does come out.
It does indeed, and you can see the health bars for Legacy all going down very low, up and to the point that Mo pops Transcendence. Dowsu will do the same. Bust comes out strong there with a big, big Earth Shatter. So many ultimates thrown into this. This one came from Ike, but it's Fundray who goes down first. They need to counter with Bust. Oily's going to throw in the self-destruct. Rainer goes down, and we're already up to 40%. Legacy are going to have to regroup here, Jordan. And this is what I was talking about before. The fight not necessarily going in their favor.
No, definitely not. A bit of a stagger at the end there as well onto Ike, so that'll cost Legacy some time. The great thing about that one for Ground Zero, really at the start of that fight, you saw so many ultimates being thrown in all over the place, but it was Ground Zero that got to hang on to their support ult just a little bit longer. Jungle Jams with the late sound barrier, that's what keeps Ground Zero healthy through the late stages of the fight, and Legacy, they don't have anything to sustain through it, and eventually they fall apart just a little bit and inevitably do fall over.
That's it, right? It wasn't necessarily... I understand the reasonings for taking the fight, but it just... Obviously, this situation not going in their favor. Right now, though, it's Locust with the grab. Throws it into the wall. Manages to catch out Fundray. If they can follow this up with some damage onto the main tank, that'll be useful. Oily will get DMAC Transcendence coming out from Mo. Dowsu, on the other hand, holding on to his, but Jungle Jazz will be the support player with an ultimate here for Ground Zero. Everyone stuck in the middle. Dubois goes down to Noosh. And Dowsu takes out his counterpart as well. Still up to 96% right now. Ground Zero looking strong. Legacy in a bit of a tight spot right now. This round looking ever closer, like it's going to go across to Ground Zero.
Well, Ground Zero are at the moment losing this fight, Ben. The Stolen Picnic sound barrier coming down for Legacy should be the nail in the coffin, as we do see that flip go across, but how much time is that actually going to buy for Legacy? That's my question. Obviously, they've finally been able to win a fight. They've finally been able to flip the point around, but they've allowed it to go to 99%. Locust has got another grab up here. Legacy don't, at the moment, have any support ultimates to deal with it. So unless Ground Zero plays really slow here, allows that Transcendence of Mo to come up, I can see a flip coming across really quickly here.
Yeah, that's the kind of the problem that we're talking about. You've got 99% to defend. It's going to be tough at this point, particularly when you don't necessarily start off even with your opponents. You can see Ike almost there we go. So they've waited long enough.
Who gets the first grab? Yeah. That's the real question in this next fight.
Grab comes out. Looks like it's going to be a grab coming from Ground Zero. Ike throws out one as well. Self-destruct in the middle. Earth Shatter comes through. Also, Noosh self-destruct will find Oily, who was caught out of the mech. Fundray comes through with an Earth Shatter as well. Dowsu goes down. Looks like 3 down here for Ground Zero. Legacy going to get 1 fight win. That's 2 in a row. They need to tie together probably 2 more here, Jordan, if they're going to hold the point.
Yeah, that's actually pretty big for Legacy as well. Like I said, Ground Zero, they just waited a couple of seconds too long. Just when that Graviton Surge comes down from Locust, Mo gets the Transcendence up, and that is enough to sustain Legacy through the fight. Not to mention, obviously, Self-Destruct chiming in there from Noosh, getting a bit of damage done, does help along. But Legacy, they're doing a pretty good job of actually rotating through those ultimates, as we're going to see Stolen Picnic coming up on his sound barrier shortly. Mo dropped low, but he's going to be okay. So Rally and sound barrier this fight for Legacy Esports. A lot of sustain available to them.
There certainly is, Jordan. There certainly is. Waiting for a good sort of engage here for Ground Zero. Rally coming out from both teams at almost the exact same time, so this fight's going to last just that little bit longer. Nice work coming in from Duboy right into the main tank there for Legacy, but Fundre will get healed up. Sound barrier coming out from Stolen Picnic, as will it from Jungle. Jazz Transcendence, Hot 5 Dows through to counteract the Graviton Surge coming out from Ike. See that Fundraiser also used his ultimate. Not sure if we saw much impact out of the Earth Shatter. On the flip side of that, Ground Zero's Earth Shatter's not half bad. Ike's gone down, Stolen Picnic's gone down. This could be the end of the fight in the first round.
Yeah, certainly looks like it will be, as Ground Zero are going to be sticking around a little bit longer here. Legacy Esports, they're all down, the gong chiming out. That'll be 99 to 100 for Ground Zero. They do pick up the first round here on Nepal. And Ben, I think really what it comes down to there is maybe Stolen Picnic with just a little bit of an early sound barrier going down, maybe a bit of a panic button. I think it was Fundre that kind of got knocked low and the sound barrier came down as a result. But if they could have held onto that sound barrier a little bit longer, that would have probably been enough to sustain them through the fight. But what ended up happening is that sound barrier came down so early for Legacy. Ground Zero hadn't even really committed anything to that fight, so they just backed away, waited for all of that shield to dissipate, and then they re-engaged as soon as the sound barrier had fallen away. So unfortunately there for Legacy, they get close, but not close enough.
One sound barrier away, potentially, though. Let's be fair, they gave up a lot of control to start things off as well. It's very difficult to come back when you've already given up 99%. So close but no cigar for Legacy. Ground Zero secure themselves the first objective, looking to make it 2 in a row here and secure Nepal in the process. We'll see a little bit of a change up. Both teams going to be running Winston instead of Reinhardt as well. So always a bit of fun here to see the Winstons getting on top of the back line. Control point will unlock in just a couple of seconds. We'll see how the targets change and whether we'll first pick Fundre. So very low, will get healed up just the last second. It's Bus actually on the point. Fundre onto the point, but gets booped off by Oily. Great play from the Diva. Bus finds one of his own. And after that, Legacy are forced to fall off. You saw Jordan Fundre jump onto the point, probably a full second too late. Yeah,
Sia Choco, the oily man, is here, and that's a big play out from him. Definitely showing why he's in this roster and what kind of an impact that individual player can have. That essentially wins the team fight for Ground Zero. Obviously, they'd already more or less capped up the point, but being able to win a fight that easily, it's going to put Ground Zero in such a good position here as well. Look at all the ultimates that they have available. Big advantage for Ground Zero. It's going to, again, be Legacy fighting from behind.
Yeah, not necessarily the ideal position. Grab going to come out, self-destruct coming through as well. This could be dangerous. Fundre goes down. The rest of the team's already been eliminated. Legacy essentially claimed wipe. It's almost worse than that because Noosh now going to get staggered as well. And Ground Zero going to find themselves probably up to at least 60% here before we see any sort of contest coming out from Legacy. Definitely making it hard for themselves. Yeah,
really a costly fight for Legacy as well in the fact that they aren't able to use any of that time to build ultimates up. They all died so quickly that we really come into this next push with more or less the same situation that they were facing in the last.
Yep.
Ground Zero have essentially afforded themselves a free fight with that.
You can see Fundre on 70%, but Bast is already at 100. This Primal Rage is available, and particularly here on Sanctum can be a little bit dangerous once Winston goes all out. Look at this, potential to boot people off. It's very hard to contest the point when you get inside as well. That can be difficult. Self-destruct, grab surge coming out from Legacy, looking for some picks, not going to find them. Mo pops Transcendence. Locust throws out his own Graviton Surge. Jungle Jazz with the sound barrier. Ground Zero almost entirely out of ultimates now. That's the last one being used. The self-destruct looking a Legacy trying to pick the point up. It's 99 to Ground Zero right now. Legacy, I think, coming out of this fight potentially on top. They need to follow it up with a couple of good picks again. If they do, Jordan, they're going to have to survive another 99%.
Yeah, certainly seems that way as the flip does come across. Legacy did a great job of keeping Fundre alive. There was so many resources being put in from Ground Zero to try and deal with that main tank, but with the Primal Rage and with the sound barrier, it was just a little bit too much damage that they had to kind of chunk through. Legacy able to survive through it all. But 15% only for Legacy Esports. We're back to the exact same situation that they were in on the first round here of Nepal. They're going to have to do one better than what they were able to do last time. I mean, Ground Zero have got so much time to just really stack 6 ultimates here if they want to.
Yeah, well, that's it, right? It could really just be a matter of 5-6 ultimates. At which point Ground Zero would probably win the fight and the round and the map of Nepal. Legacy now up to 36%, 37%. It's been tough for them. Ike trying to get as much energy as he can as well. So
he wants
much
the
of the
DMAC.
damage in this team comp will come from your Zarya. So yeah, the best way to get rid of a D.Va mech is certainly with a Zarya.
Yeah, Zarya Winston able to do quite a number onto the D.Va mech, even through that defense matrix. Grab comes out regardless, and it's a good one for Mike.
Yeah, nice timing. Will force the trance as well. Mo still sitting on his. Locust throws out one. Oh, goodbye! And that's the end of that Elfishguy.
Well, if it wasn't going to be Dewboy getting Mo there, I think Jungle Jazz might have got him as well. The boop's far too good for Ground Zero. Doesn't matter if you have a Transcendence, doesn't matter if you're invulnerable, if you're knocked off the edge. You'll have to say see you later regardless. Legacy just not quite positioning themselves well enough to avoid that, and Ground Zero, I guess that's definitely a way to win a map. Ronnie will get back here on the Wrecking Ball, but it's, I guess, not going to matter too much at all for Legacy Esports, as they will be going down 2-0 here on Nepal.
Yeah, they'll throw what they can into it, but it won't matter. And interesting fights, to be honest. Interesting rounds for me, Jordan, because it shows that clearly Legacy is capable of winning these fights and getting these points very close to that 100% mark. But if you're giving up 99% to your opponent at the start of the map, it's very tough to come back from that. We very rarely see it actually being achieved.
Yeah, I mean, it's not even the case of like giving up that 99%. Obviously, that's a big factor, but I think it's giving up that first fight so easily as well. That's the real problem, because from there, that's where Ground Zero is able to snowball and turn it into the 99%. If you watch the health bars in the initial fight before either team's even captured the point, it is always Ground Zero that's able to put more damage onto Legacy. And Legacy can't really just disengage long enough to heal their players up to then be able to re-engage. When Fundray jumps in and gets booped off by Oily, his team's already at a health deficit. So even if he doesn't go down like that, there's a reasonable chance that Ground Zero is going to be able to take that fight win anyway, not only because of the fact that Legacy is already on low HP, but it's because Legacy is the one that has to push into Ground Zero, who are in the better position anyway.
Yeah, I think that's a big point, right? Not only does it make it difficult then to engage because you're all a little bit low on HP, you've lost the first fight, so your opponents are in a better position, plus they're all ahead of you on ultimate charge. Like, literally everything is against you by that point. So it definitely makes life a little bit difficult here for Legacy. Maybe it's just warming up against this Ground Zero lineup. Maybe this week Ground Zero, they're definitely looking better than what we saw last weekend for obvious reasons. Definitely.
I think this is looking a lot better for Ground Zero. But when you go to that point of warming up here for Legacy, I don't think you want to be taking too long to really warm up. You know, you're not wanting to go down 2-0. I think for Legacy, if they're going to win this series, they have to do it on a momentum sort of a situation, which essentially means they need to win this next map. Blizzard World, if it doesn't go their way, they're going to be down 2-0. To come back from a deficit like that against what is a very consistent and experienced roster in Ground Zero, I would be very surprised to see Legacy being able to do that as a newer roster. So pretty important map coming up here, I think, for Legacy and for Ground Zero as well. Obviously, we talk a lot about Ground Zero and how their run into this season hasn't been too good. It's hugely important that they actually managed to turn this 0-2 start into a 1-2 as opposed to a 0-3. So, I mean, really, for both sides right now, this map is actually huge.
It is, because of course it's on Blizzard World, Elfishguy, which is very exciting for all of us. We haven't seen it all, right, in Contenders Australia, I don't think. So, I think the last time I commentated Blizzard World was at the Blizzard World launch.
I actually don't think I've ever commentated Blizzard World.
I got to co-cast with Musel.
That must have been very fun.
It's much better than you. Plus, he has his own creative coaching stuff, so what more could you want? All right, Legacy on attack, Ground Zero on defense. We'll see how Legacy does now. They've got a payload to work with, but of course they have to capture the control point first, and it's going to be Oily as well. A little bit different here on the Sombra.
Well, Sombra Ghost is definitely something we've seen creep into the meta a little bit this season, and I think it's going to be a big distinction between the top teams and the bottom teams as to which of the teams can actually play a good Sombra Goats. We'll see how this goes for Ground Zero with now their finally core roster.
Yeah, well, that's it. Bust taking a fair bit of damage, almost goes down. Stays up for now. The heals coming back through. Oily has to translocate back out. So every time that occurs, obviously, it's a little bit less DPS they've got to work with. Legacy getting ever close to the capping it with Bust going down. If they don't find another, they won't. So Ground Zero going to have to fall back here and give the point across to Legacy, who now will take control of this payload. Very aggressive. You can see them coming through. Dowsu somehow already has his Transcendence available.
Yeah, Oily not really being enough of a factor there for Ground Zero that Legacy kind of had to care about him at all. Like they sort of just walked straight at Ground Zero, ignored the Sombra, and they're not going to be able to do that for this next fight, obviously with the EMP coming up shortly for Oily. But to be able to get your point A that quickly for Legacy Esports, you're not going to be too disappointed with that at all. Had they not won that fight though, that's where the power of this composition for Ground Zero really starts to spike, as you rotate one fight with the EMP versus all the other ultimates through for Ground Zero. But this maybe again is not going to be the opportunity for Ground Zero as they lose a player early. EMP to try and salvage it.
Well, that's the counter coming through, and Dowsu going to be able to find Fundray once that EMP does come out. The fight looking to turn back around, potentially here in Ground Zero's favour. Noosh demected as well. So, as we were saying before, even when they lose someone immediately, even when the Jungle Jazz goes down, the EMP is enough to turn that fight around. It
is, but in a sense, Legacy didn't really invest too much into that fight either. They know that they've got the EMP out of the way. No ultimates need to go into that fight for them, and they've kind of achieved their goal in a sense anyway. Now they can come into this next fight without the threat of the EMP. Stolen Picnic doesn't have to worry about using his sound barrier too early, or Mo's not so concerned about having to play that cat and mouse game between the EMP and the Transcendence. They can just take a normal fight.
Big self-destruct coming through. Transcendence coming out for Ground Zero on defense, but it will not be enough. Bust, Duboy taken out. Locust brings one back. A tank for tank. This could be enough. Stolen, Picnic, Noosh, Ike, all finding picks as well, though. Legacy going to find this fight. The payload gets moving. If we take a look at what they used, it was the Graviton Surge and the self-destruct. So not bad use of ultimates at all here from Legacy.
Yeah, 2 for 2 ults traded from Legacy. Ground Zero for their own right using the Earth Shatter and the self-destruct. Actually, they threw in the Transcendence as well. So 3 ultimates for Ground Zero, and they lose the fight. Legacy have had a bit more of an economic fight there. It looks like they're in a really good spot to actually finish off point B here, as Ground Zero, they're really relying on this grab to be absolutely massive. But with 2 support ultimates for Legacy, unlikely that they're going to be able to get too much damage through it.
Armor for everyone. Mo with an aggressive Transcendence to allow the team to push forward. Sound barrier coming through. Bust going to get caught out there by the Earth Shatter. He's going to get booped all the way back as well. Fundray very low. The Diva chasing him down. Actually going to go down to Jungle Jazz there. Very aggressive play from the Lucio. Legacy still sitting on the point, even if they don't have their tank. Ground Zero also lost their Reinhardt. Duboy low, gets deleted by Stolen Picnic. Oily getting chased down by Rani here as well. Can be difficult to deal with that Brigitte up against close range as well, even if you are in a mech. The payload, though, not really getting very far. Ike pushes through. Bust tries to charge in, but he's going to get found out. Big 10-player streak as well here for Ike, who's having, to be fair, a pretty good game.
Yeah, definitely a big fan of Ike after what I've seen from the last few weeks. I think he was a real big part of why Legacy was able to get that 4-0 over Atletico last week, and it does seem like he's continuing the form through to this week as well against what I would probably argue is a little bit of a stronger opposition in a full-strength Ground Zero. But at the moment, it's looking great for Legacy with 4 minutes still on the clock. They're into point C already, or into phase C of the map already, I should say. And they've got a good ult economy available to them. Grab does go down just after Runny does drop, so maybe this is less than ideal for Legacy.
Self-destruct comes through. It's a 1-for-1 trade, but when Fundray goes down, all the fun disappears. They're going to have to drop back. Ground Zero holding strong for now, but they have 3.5 minutes to work with. That's, look, Jordan, we haven't seen much Blizzard World, but it doesn't feel like that time is in Ground Zero's favour. No, definitely not. I mean, unfortunate there for Legacy. They really had that momentum, and now it's finally been stalled. Ground Zero have the opportunity to reset themselves here. Rally coming through from Rani, though, as Legacy start to push their way forward. They don't want to give up too much ground to Ground Zero. Yeah, Legacy actually pushing a long way forward. Ground Zero happy to fall back for now. Oily, though, going to get caught out there by Rani. Fundray was low, but the Transcendence comes through, keeping him alive. Earthshatter available for both tanks. Bust throws out his, but he goes down. Noosh finds another as well. Legacy, you can see, getting a ton of picks. The payload will continue moving forward ever closer to this third and final objective. Legacy sitting on only 1 ultimate. Ike getting closer to the grab. Will it be enough? Stolen Picnic needs a good sound barrier here to keep them alive through Locust's Graviton Surge. Ike will have the Graviton as well. It's a game of cat and mouse right now between the two teams. It is Ground Zero with the latest sound barrier. That's what they'd like to see. Transcendence coming out from Dows to Ground Zero. Surely stay alive through all of this. Though the self-destruct on the payload, this is going to be tough to survive. They won't survive it. No one's on the payload. Big self-destruct from Noosh. and Legacy come through with what I think is probably a good time, but 2.5 minutes or something.
I'm quite confident that that's actually a fantastic time, Ben. It's hard to say, obviously, because we haven't seen too much Blizzard World here in AU Contenders, but in any map, finishing it off with 2 minutes and 28 on the clock, you're generally speaking going to be pretty happy with that. So I'm going to go through with that train of thought here for Blizzard World as well. I think Legacy have done a fantastic job, especially toward the end there. Great value out of all of their ultimates. There was really only that one fight where they didn't actually keep their payload moving, and that was the first fight into Phase C, where they threw the grab down just after Runny went down on that Brigitte. Aside from that, Legacy won every single fight here on Blizzard World, and Ground Zero is going to be a tough act to follow, I think, for them heading into their own attack now.
Yeah, I can't help but wonder, was it a direct result of, you know, maybe that Sombra not working as well as they'd wanted? Had Ground Zero won the first fight, would things have entirely gone differently if they'd been able to get ahead with that EMP? I'm not so sure. Maybe? Maybe.
There's so many ifs and buts and maybes, but at the end of the day, it really doesn't matter. Legacy are the ones that do reap the rewards of that first half. That said, it's not the end of the world for Ground Zero. We always have to see how they're able to go on their own attacking sides. The tale of two sides. Ground Zero, if they finish this map off, you know, then we go into overtime. And anything can happen, really, past picking up that first point. If you cap point A, get that payload, and then run it through in overtime, you can get pretty much the entire map finished, even in that 2 minutes and 28 for Legacy. So it's anyone's game, assuming Ground Zero can actually finish this off. Even if they don't have time, even if they just get that 1 minute, it doesn't really matter. It's overtime that matters in a map like this.
Two-boy with the Ana trying to find, I don't even know, a sneaky sleep dart. I'm not sure if it works that way, but anyway.
Well, if he hits the sleep dart, he can't swap off. I'm not so sure. Does the player wake up? I don't know. Actually, that's an interesting little mechanic that I'm not aware of.
Oh well.
If he hits and then swaps, does the player wake up? I think so.
Should try it at home, Jordan. Try it at home. Fundre takes a bit of damage, but Locust takes more. Ground Zero coming out here on attack, trying to find the first pick. For now, everyone's still alive. Legacy going to choose to defend right on the first point itself. So far, things are going okay here for Legacy. The longer that this takes, the better it is for them. Looking at ultimate charge right now, it's relatively even, but Fundre getting closer though to his Earth Shatter than Bus has been. Noosh very low.
Discord. That was a great discord from Dalsu onto Noosh as he's trying to challenge for that high ground, but 1v1 can't win that fight. Eventually does get Oily off the high ground. Nicely done from Legacy. That was a big thing.
Dalsu has the Transcendence, but Mo will have one as well. Stolen Picnic sitting on a sound barrier. Even if we went through all of these, Jungle Jazz would still get his sound barrier just in time. So 2 support ultimates will be available for both teams. The grab, though, on the favour of Legacy for now. As Legacy, as you can see, continuing to get ultimates. But if they don't need to use one, they're not going to use it. Great Earth Shatter goes down. The transfer's being used, but it's going to run out. Maybe no. Doesn't matter. The rest of the team picked up. And I think you could see there, Jordan, that Legacy were holding their ultimates because they continued to win the fight. It was Ground Zero who needed to push in, and as soon as we saw that, Legacy popped theirs.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, that's really what you need to be doing on the defensive side. To an extent, you can argue that you want to play proactively at times, but there was no reason for Legacy to be doing that. It was Ground Zero that was wasting so much time. Inevitably, they do end up dropping a fair amount of time there. But I mean, look, still 2 minutes on the clock here for Ground Zero. To see them push into this next fight. They do have the grab, they do have the Earth Shatter, some big playmaking ultimates available for Ground Zero here.
Grab and Sound Barrier both being used. Self-destruct comes through as well. Going to come down on top. Won't find any pick spawn now. Bus sitting on an Earth Shatter. Mo sitting on a defensive Transcendence. That's going to be popped as soon as the Earth Shatter comes out. So good timing. Manages to stay back. Manages to stay alive for now. Fundre getting quite low. Dalsu pops the last sort of support ultimate available here with Fundre going down as well. This might be enough for Ground Zero to find the picks they need. Already one tank down there onto the point. Noosh needs to contest. Will get D-Mech. Not much you can do there as the Diva. So it's only a matter of wasting time now. Ground Zero should find the first objective, but they'll do it with only 60 seconds left on the first point.
Yeah, definitely a big Transcendence out from Dalsu. The fight was really favouring Legacy up until that point, but he holds on long enough for Ground Zero to really bait Legacy in. And then pops that Transcendence, and that's the end of Legacy, at least on point A. But I got to give it to Legacy. I think that's a pretty solid defense.
Yes.
You don't typically always defend point A on these kinds of maps, on the hybrid maps. But to hold on for that long with only a minute left, and, you know, Ground Zero kind of still fighting from behind. If we were matching up Legacy and Ground Zero's attacking side, Legacy's progressed a lot further through the map up to this point than what Ground Zero has.
Ground Zero trying to take the high ground, but will get forced off eventually. Legacy sitting on 3 ultimates, Ground Zero on 2, but getting ever closer. That self-destruct for Oily coming through shortly. Payload moving forward. Ground Zero not really being contested, at least in terms of anyone on the payload. Ike eventually pushes forward, probably looking for a sneaky little grab, but it's Ground Zero who throws out their Graviton Surge first. Ike counters, but it's too late. Plus, his grab gets caught out by Oily. Plus, Oily catches them out with a big self-destruct.
You want to say plus 4 us again, Ben?
No, that's only 2. That's all you get.
2 plus 2 equals 4. Ground Zero get the win in the map. Round, fight, I don't know, what are we going with? The fight. They got the win on the fight.
Yeah.
And also they get a big win on the ult economy as well. I think I kind of panic ulting there a little bit. So too did Fundray as he gets that shatter down in the grab. It doesn't really do a whole lot. I mean, I think Legacy could have actually just copped the L in that fight and then taken a proper great fight here right in towards point B with all the ultimates available. Just use that one as an ult waster for Ground Zero. But now they have to go in with only a self-destruct here, Ben.
Yeah, it's going to be tough to win this fight, that is for sure. The self-destruct comes through, will not find anyone. Fortunately, Stolen Picnic gets that sound barrier just in the nick of time. Dowsu pops Trans Busto sitting on an Earth Shatter. That's going to come through underneath the payload, catches out the Diva. That Transcendence coming through now from Mo, keeping the team alive, still 6v6. Actually, Oily and Duboy, the two players looking a little bit low, but as you say, Jordan, Locust with the grab coming through, catching them out. Noosh kind of low, will get demexed as well. Ike counters this time with a grab, it doesn't get caught out, and Locust goes down. Fundray kind of ping-ponging back between 0 and full health. Dowsu finally gets the better in, but not before Bus goes down. Dowsu finally caught out as well. Legacy managed to stall just in the nick of time.
Yeah, really, really nice hold from Legacy. I thought that Ground Zero were actually going to get it done with Locust's grab. It almost felt like every single time they need an ultimate, one just pops up and an important one pops up as well. But Legacy, for their own right, Ike came up on the grab 5 seconds later and just got a little bit of a better one than what Locust was able to do, or whatever the case was. Legacy was able to follow up on it better than Ground Zero did on their own. And now Legacy in a great position, potential to hold this one off. 76% for Stolen Picnic, 60% for Mo. If this fight goes for a long time, Ground Zero are going to win the map.
35 seconds now on the clock. Ground Zero need to get through to the second objective. Rani's going to go and pop the rally as well. Fundray sitting on an Earth Shatter. Bus getting close to his. Dowsu and Jungle Jazz, though, both have ultimates to work with. Stolen Picnic going to catch up as well. So, 2 support ultimates for both teams, plus and I guess an aggressive ultimate there coming out from Fundray, you would expect shortly as well. Just waiting for the first big pick. There you go, that's the Earth Shatter underneath. Nusha's gone down, self-destruct used also. Fundray very low and caught out.
Oh, no.
You'll see 2 ultimates now being used by Legacy, and both those support ultimates going to come in too late. It won't work for them. Ground Zero will manage to secure the payload through to Objective B in the nick of time. Now, though, only 90 seconds to go through the third phase. Yeah,
that was, I got to say, a little bit potato out from Legacy. I don't know, I think that must have been miscommunication between Mo and Stolen Picnic and maybe the rest of the team as well, but in particular, you have to look at the 2 supports there. Neither of them using their ultimate early in that fight, and then both of them using it at the exact same time really leaves them in a very poor position headed into Phase T. Still finishable now for Ground Zero.
Yeah, look, grab coming out from Locust. You'll see Ground Zero able to follow through with a ton of damage with none of those support ultimates there from Legacy to deal with the damage. Normally it would not be enough, but when you don't have a shield, when you don't have Transcendence, you're probably going to go down.
I don't know that they're going to be able to build them up before the end of the map here. I think maybe it all actually hinges on the Graviton Surge for Legacy. With that said, Ground Zero don't actually have an ult of their own, so it's a winnable fight. So I should say a defensive support ult of their own, so it's a winnable fight for Legacy here if they get a good grab out.
But the grab comes through. Earth Shatter going to come out as well from Bas. Running goes down. Noosh demeched also, so Oily coming through again with some great big plays from that Diva. And it looks to me like the payload's going to get across the line just in the nick of time. About 11 seconds left on the clock. Though, we go back, regroup, and look at this holistically, I suppose, Jordan. The 2.5 minutes Legacy have considerably more than what Ground Zero have to work with. But when it gets rounded up, a minute, if you get the first objective, you just sit on the payload the whole way through.
Exactly. But with that said, it did take Ground Zero quite a while to cap up point A initially, so we'll see how Legacy again goes on the defense. At the moment, it definitely is Legacy's map to lose, but you got to question what the mentality is within the team right now. After losing that fight on point B, you kind of just saw them falling over on point C as well. It's something, you know, a mental block right now for Legacy. Like, how are they going to come back from that kind of a reset? Ground Zero, they're starting to feel it. They're starting to feel like, hey, we can actually win this map. Maybe Legacy was better for 90% of this map thus far, but for the 10% that mattered for Ground Zero, it was enough to get them through. And now they have a chance. It's a slim one, but as long as they can cap point A and as long as they can get a big push in overtime, which is absolutely possible once you get some momentum going, Legacy could be in a real spot of bother here. Yeah,
well, the first key point is what can Ground Zero do with their 60 seconds of attack.
Exactly.
They need to capture the first objective. It's unlikely that if they don't do that, that Legacy will fail with 3.5 minutes or 3:15 on the clock. So
you would definitely be safe in making that argument, I think, then. Standard goats out for both sides.
The Underdark comes out again, I'm pretty sure. Still not going to find anyone this time around. The time, very important right now for Ground Zero Gaming. They have about 1.5 fights to work with here. The first one needs to be a quick one if they want to have a second. First time around, though, it took them at least 60 seconds just to even get onto the first objective. So, we can see Oily already very, very low. Locust, though, going to be pushing through with a very charged Zarya. Fundre, Rainy, both looking low, and Rani's going to go down first. That is not what Legacy wanted to see. Do they fall off here? It looks to me like that's going to be the case. They're going to try and take a second fight on the payload.
Yeah, no point really throwing everything at that one for Legacy. The fight was already lost, and all it would have achieved was to feed more ultimate charge over to Ground Zero, which is essentially a death sentence when you go into the overtime push. Because if Ground Zero have all those ults, they can continue the momentum through, and Legacy never really gets a good chance to reset. But in this case, Legacy does have the opportunity to reset. Now they can take a full 6v6 fight, a proper fight. Try and charge the ults up.
Exactly, and you don't often get to see a fight at the payload right here. Normally teams have lost too many players and they just a little bit too slow to get back. Lexi, obviously now we're into overtime. Every meter counts. Mo with the Transcendence, as is Dowsu. Locust, though, going to have a grab coming up shortly. I guess Ike will have the same. The grab going to come out first from Ground Zero. Transcendence, though, going to come out very quickly. Ike throws out his grab right there. They need to follow it up with a bit of damage if they want to make something of this. Earthshatter comes through, but you can see the sound barrier as well for Stolen Picnic. Can this be enough? Legacy throwing a lot into this fight. If they lose this fight, they're in a spot of bother.
And it certainly looks like they're going to be losing the fight as well. Mo does get the D-Mech on the Diva, but it doesn't matter at all, because Legacy all been taken down. Rani again, the one to drop early. No rally out from him.
No, that was a good little fight from Ground Zero. They're making the most of the 60 seconds they started with here, Jordan. And now, these are crucial meters for Ground Zero Gaming.
Every meter puts that percentage higher for Ground Zero. You know, maybe at the moment we're at 30% win chance for Ground Zero, but as they push in toward point B, it'll hit up to 50%, something like that. Legacy with another attempt at holding on here. Transcendence available once again, self-destruct to buy some space.
Oh, it's a bit high, not going to find anyone. Not sure if the timing was right there, to be perfectly honest. Oily, though, has been pretty good with his self-destructs today. That's a huge Earthshatter. Can they follow it up? It might be. It might be fight ending here. It might be round ending. Ike goes down to Oily. That's not bad. Grab as well coming out from Ground Zero. They need to follow this up with damage. Transcendence from Dowsu. All of the ultimates now being used here by Ground Zero Gaming. If they fall off the payload, that is the end of their round. Fundre still going strong. You can see Rani having a bit of a better time this time around. Still alive, still supporting the tank. But Fundre's gone down. This is going to be tough now. Legacy potentially not going to get through. But it's a big trade. Jordan said the shield bash coming through, allowing that self-destruct to do what it needed to do. And this will be the end of Ground Zero on attack.
It will indeed, but Ground Zero, I don't know that they'll be too disappointed with that attacking side. It's definitely given them something to defend. I mean, when we're talking about those percentages, I'd say it's still leaning on the way of Legacy with 3 minutes and 15 seconds. That's a lot of time to actually get to where Ground Zero did get. Yeah. But it's only like, I'd say 60-40 at the moment, favoring Legacy. It's better than what it could have been for Ground Zero. I mean, you look at that as Ground Zero and you say, hey, we'll take that. It's definitely defendable. Better than the 30% or the 20% that I was talking about before. We're up to about 40%, I would say.
About 40, you sure? 42? 41?
Well, let's just
35.
make it a nice flat 40. But Legacy, they're going to be feeling bad about losing that fight under the gate because that really has shifted it a little bit in the favor of Ground Zero.
Yeah, and of course, when Ground Zero defended Objective A the first time around, they had that Sombra. No Sombra this time by the looks of things. They're not willing to make the same mistake twice. So it could be a little bit more difficult for Legacy to push their way through this time around.
Yeah, Legacy just need to be focusing on the task at hand. Forget what's happened throughout this map. Forget that you've kind of given Ground Zero an opening. They've got their foot in the door now and really just focus on slamming that door shut once again. It all kind of just matters what's happening from now on, not what happened in the past for Legacy.
3 minutes, on both sides. 15 seconds. Fair bit of time. Once they're on the payload, definitely capable of making it at least as far as Ground Zero did, but the first objective can be tricky. Legacy going to go through the end to start things off. Ground Zero going to sit on the high ground. Mo takes a bit of damage, but again, healed up nice and quickly. Legacy just waiting to find their way onto the first point. They tried the left side. Are they going to continue in this fashion? Yes, onto the point Fundre goes. Getting a little bit of support, but very, very low. The boot comes through also, but it's Locust who gets the pick. Rani also low, about to go down by the looks of things. It's very difficult now to win this fight.
Yeah, time to just reset. It's not looking quite as comfortable or confident for Legacy at the moment, is it? Ground Zero looking much better on this defense without the Sombra. No real surprises. They've always been the team that we've kind of associated with standard GOATS composition when things changed up. They didn't go so well, but when they're running the normal GOATS, they generally do pretty well. It's just a return to form for Ground Zero. Legacy, 2 minutes still left on the clock to cap up point A. Then overtime, anything can happen with that payload, like I said before.
1:15 down, 2 to go. We take a look at ultimates. Ground Zero certainly looking like they might be in the better of the two positions for now. Transcendence popped firstly by Mo. Ground Zero still haven't used anything there apart from Dubois' rally. Dowsu eventually will use his, and a big shatter does come through. Oh my god! Could this be the shatter that matters? Sound barrier also comes out from Legacy. Fundre takes down Locust. Bus was taken out by Fundre also. Dowsu tries to do something about it, but it's only a matter of time here.
Well, that is very good for Legacy now. They're able to actually cap this up. There's only Reinhardt on the point. Mo, get over there. Cap it up. Make sure it gets done. Very, very nice shatters out on both sides, but Fundre with the second, and that's what matters. Generally speaking, when it's an exchange of ultimates, it's usually the team that throws the second ultimate within, you know, the 5 seconds or so that does come out with the advantage.
That was why it looked like maybe Ground Zero might come out on top. They'd used their ultimates second. It was the trans from Dowsu that looked like it had been timed so well. But the one problem with trans, Jordan, is get a little bit aggressive when you've been kept alive. You can drop your shield.
Job's not yet done for Legacy though, Ben. They've got a lot of ultimates here. Need to ensure that they get some momentum heading into Phase B as well.
Yeah, 40 seconds, not that much time, but still enough to get them through. Plus, of course, any sort of overtime they've got to work with. Once again, Ground Zero already getting their ultimates back up and running. Need to follow it up with damage. That's the real question. Graviton Surge also available here for Ike. We talked about it last week. You don't need to get everyone. You just need to get someone. Fundre going to go down. It was a nice, I think, Earth Shatter coming through there, but perhaps not nice enough, Jordan.
No. 10 seconds left on the clock, Ben. Not a good time for Legacy to be losing the fight. They are still going to be able to get the touch for the overtime, but look at what they expended to try and win that fight. Fundre just getting a little too aggressive, a little too overeager, and isolates himself in the fight and gives Ground Zero the opportunity to win it. And now we're into really what comes to a dry push out from both teams. There's a rally there for sure. A couple of support ults for Legacy. I kind of give this one to Legacy if the fight lasts long enough to get both the support ults out.
That's it, right? Stolen Picnic and Mo both with pretty good ultimates here to work with. They just need to follow up with a bit of damage. The problem for Legacy is, of course, that they're stuck on that payload. They cannot get too far away. The trans has gone down. It wasn't of use. Stolen Picnics also popped that sound barrier now, Jordan, but they're not finding the picks. Yes, Oily will get DMEC. Locust, though, managing to throw out that Graviton Surge, and this could be enough to put Legacy up.
It's a nice shout out from Bus, and it might be enough to win the map. It looks like Ground Zero are coming out ahead in this fight. Noosh does trade one back with the self-destruct, but Ben, I don't think it's going to be enough.
No, I'm not thinking much either. Locust finds Zyke Stolen Picnic going down. Legacy running out of players. No one on the payload, and Ground Zero will pick up Blizzard World. Now sitting at 2-0 at halftime here in that first match of the day. But Jordan, that's Legacy they had such a good start.
Legacy should have won that map.
Yeah.
I mean, that is a real tilter, I think, for Legacy to lose in that kind of a fashion as well. Even in that last fight, you know, the one where I was talking about with those 2 support ultimates coming up, it should have been Legacy's, and you could see what they were trying to do. They were trying to push aggressively with those ultimates.
Yep.
Transcendence comes down. Great, Legacy, need to push forward, need to hold the W button, do some damage. Sound Barrier also comes down. Same concept. But they just don't get a kill. If you're going to use 2 support ultimates like that aggressively for Legacy, you need to follow it up with a kick or 2, because straight after that, once your 2 support ults are down, that's when Ground Zero, with all that health damage that they've been able to do, have built up a couple of ultimates, as we saw.
Yep.
Locust with the Graviton Surge turns it around, and then Bus gets a nice shatter as well. And Legacy, they don't have support ultimates to tank through all of that damage. They just didn't do enough.
I think for me as well, Ground Zero maybe let this map get a little bit out of hand at the start, but you got to give it to them. They managed to regroup across the course of the game. They managed to bring it back, even though they only had 1 minute to work with. They got on the payload, they got it far enough, they won the fights that they needed to win. And the second time around, when they attacked that first objective, they did so with a much, much better time. Obviously, they had to be able to get through, but now they're 2-0, and yeah, that second match, or the second map wasn't necessarily clean, but the scores are the scores, Jordan, and right now they're 1 map win away from taking the series.
It's not looking good for Legacy at the moment, is it? I mean, you go down 0-2, okay, sure. Nepal, maybe a little bit cleaner there from Ground Zero. That last map, though, in Blizzard World, like, Legacy definitely could have and probably should have won that map, and that's where you kind of get that little bit of tilt in your mind. I really want to see Legacy come back here, win 1 map, maybe win 2 maps, push us through to the tiebreaker. I think it is within the realms of possibility. Legacy's not playing awfully today. They're just making little mistakes that need to be fixed, and if they can do that over this break and maybe win that 3rd map, you know, back on that momentum, then who knows what can happen here. But failing that, I mean, Ground Zero, I think it's just looking like the better team at the moment.
They are. Legacy, as Jordan said, making small mistakes. Ground Zero back on the GOATS train, Jordan, and looking not too bad. 2 more maps at a minimum remain here in this first matchup of the day. We'll take a very quick break when we call back. More Overwatch. We'll see you soon.